China Southern is the largest airline in China, and Guangzhou is the second busiest airport in the country. That said, I really had little to go on to know what to expect on my flights with them. There's simply not a lot of English language content about flights in the region, compared to other major population centers at least. That's also probably at least part of the reason why it would seem that no one in North America is consistently talking about how much more expensive fares are between the continent and Asia, and how much of those price hikes have to do with the airlines flying through this airport, in part at least. I'll tell you all about it as we hop over to Taipei in business class. By the way, if you're ever curious how much I paid for this or any other flight, the exact price out of my pocket is always in the description. Let me welcome any of you that might be new to the channel. My name is Kevin. I'm here to give you a self-funded and honest look at some of the best, most unique, or simply most popular airlines and hotels in the world, which I've been bringing to you full-time for going on 5 years. I'd love for you to know more about how I do things on the channel, so simply scan the QR code or check out my hundreds of videos to do so. Let's get into the trip reporter. I landed in Guangzhou from Dhaka at the wee hour of 4 a.m., and my next flight wasn't until 11:15 a.m. I did a bit of research before arriving and saw that there was an air hotel, and I was going to treat myself to a room for a few hours. Well, turns out it no longer exists. So I headed straight to the China Southern Lounge, which, like everything else here at this hour, was a ghost town. Considering this airport had over 76 million passengers last year, I was expecting just a little more activity around the clock. No complaints though, I was able to get a prime lazy boy chair position in the lounge. The lounge has two sides, one for business class where we are now, and the other one for the elite members, keeping in mind that China Southern is no longer in SkyTeam or any other alliance, deciding in 2019 to go it on their own. The breakfast service here started around 5:30, and there was a decent spread on offer and plenty of spaces to sit, even as the lounge did begin to fill up pretty quickly. Guangzhou, both the city and the airport, are really unique in that they sit atop the densely populated Pearl River Delta, also known as the Greater Bay Area. This region is to China what, say, the Northeast Corridor is to the US, but way bigger. That also makes the skies in the region some of the most congested and tightly regulated in the world, with over 218 million passengers passing through the region last year. You'd surely see a pig flying out the window before you ever saw a plane fly in a straight line from Guangzhou to Taipei. Let's navigate the big, bright, and clean terminal to our distant gate, and I'll dive in a bit. I've probably touched on this in like 10 videos over the years, but this is my first time in mainland China doing a video. So I figured it would be a good time to do a deeper dive into the lack of connectivity between China and North America, especially the US post-COVID. And to be honest, since I have been talking about this for a couple of years, I was expecting all of this to be fixed, quote unquote, by now. First, there are two things to consider. China, you may know, was on lockdown for far longer than the US, with very few international connections. During this time, domestic tourism in China began to boom in a way that it hasn't before, and at the same time, China was limiting the number of foreign aircraft allowed to fly into the country. In a move of reciprocity, the US did the same. It's been reported that when China did begin to slowly reopen, they simply didn't have enough aircraft to support the new domestic tourism boom and bring back European and US flight levels back to pre-COVID levels. By this time, Russian airspace was closed for European carriers, and so the Chinese carriers essentially made a strategic decision to focus on reopening the European markets first, since they'd have an automatic competitive advantage, being able to fly over Russian airspace. The other side of it is, even if they wanted to restore all US services though, they wouldn't be able to. The two countries have been painfully slow at re-establishing and authorizing weekly flight quotas. At first, just around 12 round trips were allowed per week for each country's airlines, then 18, then 35, and now for much of 2024 we've been stuck at 50. Let me tell you, 50 round trips per week is nothing. Prior to COVID, there were 150 round trips per week per country. Think of it this way. In 2019, Air China had 3 daily flights to Los Angeles and 2 dailies to JFK. That alone, one airline, 2 routes, is already 35 round trips per week. It's just a short flight to Taipei, but I was happy to see a few weeks out that we were upgauged to an A330. Between China and Europe, things are very different. In 2023, there were almost 450 round trips per week between the two, 9 times more than the US. Not to mention, the mainland Chinese carriers are dominating the frequencies to Europe, as half of the European carriers that served the mainland prior to COVID no longer do so because of the higher costs avoiding Russian airspace, and just the reduced tourist demand inbound to China. What does this mean for airfares globally, and why am I talking about it? Well, fares between Asia in general and Europe are more or less in line with fares in 2019. A little bit higher, but in line with inflation. Between Asia and the US though, it's a different story. These are not scientific numbers, these are just from my own experience flying between the two multiple times a year. I used to consistently get round trips between Southeast Asia and New York for under $2,500 in business class, sometimes under $2,000, on a variety of carriers: Asiana, Air China, Philippine Airlines, Etihad, Cathay Pacific, and more. Now, you'd be lucky to get something for $1,000 or $1,500 more. Airfares to and from Australia and New Zealand have always been high, but they too are higher now as well to North America for that exact same reason. So this is just what it is now. It's not a critique or a complaint, but as someone who looks at airfares all freaking day long, it's amazing how I never read about this dynamic when the media speaks about the higher airfares day after day. Exact same story as my previous flight, the cabin is bright and airy and the crew were all super high energy. On this flight, the crew were actually even friendlier than the previous one, though once service started, they were all about efficiency. Mainland carriers often have crew and passengers sat for the last 30 minutes of the flight, making the service window on short trips like this very narrow. This crew, like no other crew that I've ever seen, hustle from the minute that they're up until the minute that they sat, without ever looking like they were rushing or behind. You've seen these seats on the channel multiple times, most recently in one of my LATAM videos. They were very popular for airlines in the mid-2010s on A330s and 787s. In general, they're very comfortable seats, especially for regional flights. There's simply no privacy though, because they're in 222 configuration. If you're in the window and you want to get out, you're going to need to climb over your neighbor. But there's so much legroom here that it's a fairly easy task, even if they are sound asleep in full flat mode. Otherwise, the seats were in great condition and spotless. Loads of storage under the footrest, it's deceptively deep under there. Juice, hot towels, and pre-departure drinks were passed around before the door was closed, and soon after the safety video and in-flight security videos began to roll. If you're enjoying the video and would like to support the channel, there are many ways that you can do so. A quick like on the video and subscribe helps videos with the algorithm. You could join my YouTube channel memberships to get early access to some videos and access to all of my community posts. Or you could check out my Patreon, where I post the most and can help you out with any travel related questions. Whatever you do, thanks for doing it. Taipei is of course northeast of us, but we'd be flying south for a while to get out of the airspaces of Shenzhen and Hong Kong before turning north towards Taipei. Amenities on this flight were the same as the previous one from Dhaka. A nice plump and plush pillow, followed by a full-size duvet-style blanket, which of course has a bit of an odd nylon-y texture. A nice pair of slippers as well. The meal service was all on one tray and was pretty comprehensive. We had a choice of chicken with rice, beef with rice, or fish with noodles. I chose the chicken with rice in what I believe was a very mild curry-like sauce, similar to curries that you'd find in Vietnam in my experience. The chicken was tender, vegetables fresh, and rice not cooked to death. We also had a mini salad with cold cuts, the same fruit and cake from earlier, along with yogurt, those walnut kernels that I love, fruit and nuts, and a Dove chocolate. All in all, there is absolutely nothing to fault here. 9 out of 10. They even proactively asked if I wanted ice, a very rare occurrence on a mainland carrier. Entertainment on board was the same selection as was streamable on my last flight, laid out in an easy-to-navigate fashion. The flight map wasn't the newest, but everything functioned well, and there were headphones provided too. The bathrooms were very Emirates 2008, sporting a healthy dose of burled walnut trim in an otherwise clean and stocked facility. Around 40 minutes before landing, suites were passed out, and the flight attendants came around and individually told each passenger the exact landing time and temperature on the ground. We had a beautiful approach into Taipei, showing off nearly the full length of the island. So China Southern impressed me all around. They were very well put together, efficient as anything, had very good food, and friendly service as well. They deserve the 7 slot. If I had the same level of service from them on a long-haul flight in the future, they'd probably make it up to an 8. So I really do hope that you enjoyed this trip report today. If you did, please be sure to click that like button and subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss out on my twice weekly videos. I'll see you next time from the Raffles in Siem Reap, Cambodia. As always, thanks for watching until the end.